Hello everyone, my name is Gail, and we're going to discuss associations between maternal weight and children's developmental outcomes. Now, this study was led by Australian researchers who conducted what is known as a meta-analysis. Now, there's been some previous research to investigate associations between increased maternal weight before and during pregnancy and later likelihood of a diagnosis of neurodevelopmental conditions, including autism and ADHD. However, the effects in prior studies have been inconsistent or not always observed. So to look further at this, the authors looked at evidence from 42 studies across the world. Together, the data compiled evidence from more than 3.6 million individuals and their children. The main takeaways that the authors report is that increased maternal obesity in pregnancy was linked to increased likelihood of autism, ADHD, and conduct disorder in children. Now, as you can imagine, there was some media attention around these findings, but it's really important to acknowledge some really key limitations to this research. Now, when we conduct a meta-analysis, we summarize data from many different kinds of studies with different methodologies, different criteria around participant inclusion, and different ways of identifying childhood developmental outcomes. In particular, there are a range of different ways neurodevelopmental outcomes, like autistic traits or diagnoses, was assessed in many of the studies that were included in this analysis. Some looked at reported diagnoses, some studies conducted developmental assessments, others used questionnaires from parents. This is a really important distinction. We know that best practice for diagnosis of neurodevelopmental differences is actually really more complex than higher scores on a questionnaire. Many of the included studies also differed in their sample sizes. There were some really small studies to some very large population level cohort studies that were followed over time. Lastly, the study only just looks at one particular outcome before and during pregnancy, in this instance weight, but the association between things that happen before and during pregnancy and children's developmental outcomes is actually quite complex, which indeed the authors do try to statistically control for some of these factors, but don't acknowledge a lot of other things that do occur during pregnancy. However, the challenge with these kinds of studies is that the kinds of implications that can be made can be quite big and maybe not substantiated. The authors suggest that targeting maternal weight during pregnancy would be a plausible public health effort to impact children's neurodevelopment. However, while this study tells us about the degree of evidence supporting associations between pregnancy weight and children's developmental outcomes, it does not suggest that weight during pregnancy directly causes or impacts neurodevelopmental outcomes. So while such large analyses give us statistical evidence around a particular hypothesis, it's really important that we as researchers try not to overstate the significance of an association or overstate those sort of policy implications, particularly given some of the limitations that we've discussed here. Now, to read more about this paper, follow the link in the description.